Hey there, and welcome to that Independent Streak podcast. I'm Wendy Campbell, and today we speak to Theresa Stage Hazelton. Now, Theresa has nothing to offer you. She's not got a book, she does not have a podcast. Really, she's not selling anything. I watched her from afar for a few years. In fact, she and I knew each other way back in the beginning of the 2000s and completely separated, but had Facebook. And unlike most people, spent the last few years posting some interesting photos of like these beautiful landscapes, these beautiful Alaskan landscapes with really not a lot of information to share. So I knew there was a story there. I knew I wanted to know what it was, and I am so grateful that she took a moment to kind of cue me into everything that she was doing up there. I think it's a fantastic story. I think it's a great story about what you can do kind of when you don't know what to do. There's possibilities out there that are endless. There's possibilities for you to grow and for you to try new things, and really age has nothing to do with it. So without further ado, I bring you Theresa Stage Hazelton. And just a little show note before we jump in. If you'd like to help the show in any way, shape, or form, just check out any of the sponsors that may be attached. Thanks so much. I hope you enjoy. So how you doing?
I am doing great, doing great. It's been kind of a leisurely last few weeks, not working, but I'm about 10 days out. So now it's time to get, pumped up and start getting ready for work mode again.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you decided to do this now then, so it doesn't get too busy for you.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
You want to just dive in? You ready to go? You ready to?
Sure.
All right. All right. So I
I'll just
actually,
follow your lead.
oh, it's dangerous, but sure. I was actually really just reading about the zombie apocalypse. Have you read all these articles that are going around? There's one about like the eye drops cause you to lose your eyeballs. And then there's another one where if you do fentanyl, the fentanyl's got some sort of weird virus in it or some sort of thing in it that it's making like your skin lesion. And so they're calling it a zombie virus. And then there's another one that they just released where there's something else wrong where it's also a zombie. I'm baffled. I think we're excusing ourselves into the zombie virus is what I think. Anyway, so I guess I'm really glad that we finally got to do this. But I've been and we talked about this a little bit, but I'm going to guide you through this for everybody who doesn't know your whole story. I've been kind of watching you very, I guess, stalkeringly, like over the last couple of years, and watching your Facebook feed. Like we've been friends for a long time, but like seeing like this evolution of imagery and beautiful pictures, and kind of out of nowhere this jump into Alaska. And I was like, with all the junk that's on Facebook these days, all the let me compare to this, and let me do this stupid quiz, and let me tell you about my nonsense. Like the refreshing vibe that comes out of these pictures kind of had me thinking, okay, well, there's a story here, so we need to sit down and talk about it.
I love.
So, one, thank you for posting all these great pictures and getting it started. But um, yeah, let's talk about how you went from where you were to where you got. And I don't know how deep you want to get into all of it, but starting
I'm an
from
open book.
all right, starting from media, because that's kind of where you and I met. You got into optometry, but tell me how one in today's world picks up and decides to start working in Alaska. And just kind of walk me through because not everybody is privy to your pictures. So we kind of have to set the stage and set the story for everybody.
Okay. Well, first, my pictures, they don't even do it justice. I mean, the pictures I post from what I'm seeing and the majestic views is my pictures just don't even touch it. But anyway, so I started when I was in my early 20s in the optical business. And for a short stint, I jumped out into media. Well, 6 years. I don't know how short of a stint, but just
Right.
kind of went back and forth between, media business, selling advertising, and then going back and forth to optical. And I always enjoyed, optical business. And so I always had that kind of there when the media burnout and sales burnout would come, I'd always go back to eyeballs.
Nice,
So
nice to have something in your back pocket, so to speak.
yeah, exactly. And so I was married for 30 years. My husband and I separated. So I started out just kind of fresh and brand new and was sitting in my new house and just kind of in tears and at a loss of like, what the hell am I going to do? I just was lost. I spent a lot of time just reflecting and digging in on myself and what did I need to do? And I knew I needed to do something big, something bigger. And I literally was sitting at my dining room table crying and praying and just studying and whatever, and out of the blue, so this is all divine intervention, because out of the blue, my phone sitting next to me all of a sudden beeps. It's showing me I have an email notification, which I don't have email notifications set up on my phone. Like I don't get notified.
Mm-hmm.
It was weird, and it was Indeed, and it was this job posting. And it was almost real cheesy sounding, like you want your dream job and go travel in Alaska, as an optician, and you travel to different villages and towns, and you travel with an optometrist, and you go do eye exams out in these remote places. And at first I was like, scam, but something just kept gnawing at me with it. And so I was like, this is just amazing. Literally, I'm sitting here talking about what is it I want to go do. And traveling was part of that. Like, I just want to do something bigger. And so I decided to research the company, Prism Optical of Alaska. And I started researching, and they are actually, a legitimate business. They've been in business since 1959 doing this, offering this service, going out to the villages and offering eye exams and being able to order glasses and contacts. And so once I found out it really was a legitimate business, I kind of cyber stalked them. I did send on Indeed, my resume, which I had to go update because I wasn't looking for another job. So I real quick updated it, sent it on Indeed, and then I cyber stalked them and emailed them directly, Facebooked it to them, and then I kept calling them and I said, I'm your next technician. Like, how are we doing this? And I went through just phone interviews, and they offered me the job. And so I started in October, trying to follow up on it. And then by December, right between Christmas and New Year, they called and offered me the job. And
No,
that
there's
was
a lot that you jumped over very quickly in that. But like so I think there's a lot to be said for that point in your life where you really don't know what your direction is,
yeah,
and that
I
intuition kind of has to get involved because I mean, and I've been there a couple of times where you're sitting in a town and you don't know if you want to stay in the town. You don't know if you want to like you feel like you've kind of burnt your stories. And so that feeling you get like I think there's something to be said about like looking for that feeling.
Mhm.
So when you say I was not sure and I was sitting at my table, there's a few things around you. Like what was really driving you at that point? Like what were your choices? Was it just I'm gonna go with the next big thing or did you have other ideas? Because
I
jumping to Alaska is not the first thing that would jump into my head.
Well, okay. I guess one of the things my heart desired was, and I was thinking more on a volunteer level, like how can I make money and still go volunteer and travel to places to do like glasses.
Hmm.
There's a lot of volunteer opportunities, which I might have one coming up, as a matter of fact. But was just trying to figure out, that was just kind of ideally, that was where I, let me start from another point too.
Okay.
I had just been reading a book talking about finding what it is that you're supposed to do. What is your purpose?
Do we know the name
And
of the book still, or did you move on from it?
I have it somewhere.
I'm a big fan of the books. I like to read books. Keep
I
going.
and ironically, that's a whole other story how I got that book, but um I knew I wanted to, and this is what's bizarre about it. I was literally sitting there going, I want to travel. I want to do something, in this line, going to help people and serving people. That to me is where my purpose is.
Hmm.
I want to serve people. And I happen to have, 20, almost 30 years of optical experience, and so when it literally all in this same moment, and I'm not even kidding when I'm telling you, this all was within a 30-minute thing happening. like this email popping up and it notifying me, and I was just like, this is really bizarre because this is exactly what I was sitting here, you know, contemplating. And it was exactly what I was going through. It was exactly what I was looking for. It was exactly what I was praying about.
Hmm.
And it was following what I felt like my purpose was and a calling was. And it came to me. I don't know if I manifested it in that moment or how it happened, but I have zero explanation for it except for that it was divine intervention. It is.
I think yes. So I think there is some divine intervention in there, but I also think that there's a little bit of you chose to follow it. So there that willingness to step into it, I think, is really, really fun. Not fun. Fun's not the right word, but I think it takes a bravery to say, okay, I hear that, and this is what's happening, and yeah, let's just check it out and see what happens and where we go.
It just fit. I just don't feel like I had an option in it. It just fit. It was so perfect with everything that was happening in that moment. And I mean, also, let's throw out there, I'm a complete mountain girl. I mean, I'm born and raised in Colorado, and I raised my kids taking them up camping and hiking and snowmobiling and ATVs and motorcycle. I'm a mountain girl. I love the mountains. So Alaska was a natural step for me.
Right.
Because I talked to other people that were like, "Oh hell no, I would never do that," and I'm like, "What?"
I know.
But
I
it
bet
was
it's
very
so cool up
natural.
there.
Yeah, it was very natural for me.
So you're talking to them, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. So we'll
Oh
we'll
no, that's
pick up from
okay.
there. So you're talking. You see the article or the ad. You start talking to them. You do the back and forth.
Mhm.
They nod off. You nod off. You decide you're going to work together. Explain to me what's going through your head when you realize that this is your new life and this is your new job, and what your family's response to this was. What was the response you got from your people?
That's a whole other thing. I was super excited. I
Right.
had, like I said, it just felt so right to me in my spirit. It felt so right that I knew I was doing this. And like, I don't want to say I was fearless, but I certainly I was not nervous or scared. It just felt right. Now, my whole entire family, on the other hand, had a whole other take on it, except for maybe a couple. I think both of my kids were like, right on, go do it, mom. And my mom, she about had a fit, and the rest of the family, it was just safety concerns. They all think I'm kind of crazy anyway. So
I can relate and understand that totally. I think there's almost the societal notion that we need to start slowing down when we get to a certain age, especially with women. Women need
yeah.
to start settling in and kind of going into the shadows. And I think when we choose adventure over that, there's
Hmm.
something exciting. And so I think it should be shared with women everywhere. Any woman who's like in that place where they just don't know what they want to do and they've got adventure on their doorstep and they don't know if they should do it. I think there's
Oh
something to be
yeah,
said about
I
stepping out and doing it.
I started doing this at 48. I'm 51 now. I just turned 51. So no, this
You look
is
great, by the
but
way.
I definitely didn't start this, young, and I did have a little bit of a concern, like should how long am I going to really be able to do this and that? And no, it's a piece of cake. It's so good. It's a
Nice.
lot of work. It's a lot. It's a lot of work, but it's every minute of it is worth it.
Nice. Nice. So okay, so you're packing up, you're getting ready to go. We put mom aside and said, "Mom, it's going to be okay."
Yeah.
What are your expectations as you're getting ready to do this trip, and how close were you versus how off were you?
You know, I don't know that I had any expectations. I think I personally, just myself in general, I try not to step into things with expectations. I try to just step into things and let them play out. I had interviewed with a number of people that were already doing it, other my coworkers, and I had a pretty good idea of what it entailed.
Mhm.
Um, The packing, I was, really excited about it, but I'm a super organized person. So I always have my list compiled, in advance, and I make sure I have everything I need and it fits in there like a good little puzzle. And, you know, it was it
I've seen
was
some of your packing online, so I believe that to be true.
yeah, we carry around 350-pound bags each. The doctor has 3 bags, I have 3 bags. So we're lugging we're lugging baggage around for sure. That's the other
So
one.
did you fly into Juneau or where did you fly into?
Anchorage.
Okay, so
So
you fly into Anchorage. Now walk me through the next few steps after that because there's some travel involved, right, to get to the backcountry.
all I'm doing the entire time I'm up there is travel every day or every other day. So I got up there, actually, no, I didn't go to Anchorage. I actually flew directly into Ketchikan, which is not normal, but I was meeting up with the doctor and the other technician that was going to train me.
Mhm.
And so I got up there and met the technician that was going to train me. Got up there and you had to take. And I don't know if you're familiar with Ketchikan. The airport's on the other side of the water, so you actually have to get your bag. Then you got to get on a ferry, take it across to the other side to town, and then you make your way, over to where you needed to go. One thing I will say that happened with the very first trip. So it was March. It was the week of my birthday. Oh, it's exactly 3 years ago. Exactly three
Happy
years ago.
birthday, by the way. I didn't forget.
Thank you. Exactly 3 years ago, I went up there, and COVID had kind of was starting to be in the news.
Mhm.
And it was so early on in COVID that my ex-husband, Buzz, he's still my best friend. We've stayed friends through this. So he helped make sure I had this and that. And he was excited but concerned for me as well. But he had this old mask that he used to use for sanding. And I'm like, I think I need to have a mask because I think they're starting to require people to have masks. And so he brings me up this, I don't, what are they called? These masks that have the little ventilator thing. They're just paper ones. But it was so old that when I went to put it on, the rubber bands on it like turned to dust in my hands. And he literally went and took rubber bands and stapled them on the sides for me so that I could hook them on my ears.
Oh, that's awesome. That's actually
And
really sweet.
it was hilarious because it was just, masks weren't just readily available. This was literally at the very beginning of it. And I didn't even really think too much of it. And I was there and we started in Ketchikan and we did a couple days there, went to Wrangell was the next stop. And then COVID totally kicked in and they started canceling all the flights and canceling, like telling everybody get home, like everything shutting down.
Uh-huh.
I was literally on my 4th day of training of this dream job that I was so excited and amped up for, and we had to shut operations down and I got sent home.
Oh, that totally sucks. So,
And
actually, that brings up a really good question. I have actually a couple questions in there.
yeah,
And I apologize because I'm going to keep interrupting you. It's just
please do.
bad habit. But so you're finding out about COVID while you're in the backcountry of Alaska. How worried are people in Alaska in the backcountry about a disease that's hitting the mainland that obviously like nobody knew. I remember those days. Nobody knew. But were they really worried or were they just kind of like, meh?
Yeah, so in Alaska, when I actually got there, so my training trip, luckily, was the southeast portion, that little leg that goes down alongside of Canada, and it's actually more like rainforest.
Hmm.
It's more like Seattle weather type of environment, and those are bigger towns. So I
Okay.
was training in towns where we actually have offices, remote offices that we can go set up in. And I'll explain to you in a little bit like what the different trips that I do because there's, so actually to be able to get into the villages, they completely shut down and nobody was allowed in. Because when the Spanish flu came through in 1917 or whatever it was, white man came in and completely wiped out villages. So as soon as
Fair
COVID
point.
started, they like immediately, the villages didn't forget. That's for sure. And they completely shut down any visitors, anybody coming in to the villages. So actually that very first year and a half, the villages stayed closed. It wasn't until 21 before they even started opening up and allowing us to come in to offer services or any other doctor services for that matter.
Oh, wow.
And then we had to, I was required to do all the vaccinations, and we had to have an emergency plan, and we had, everybody was masked or double masked, and we had to require patients wearing masks. And oh man, that was all stuff. But so yeah, I got sent home. And talking about zombie apocalypse, I was going from Seattle. I got flown back out of Wrangell, back down through Ketchikan down to Seattle, and I got into the Seattle airport. And this was like the one or last day or two on my birthday that there was any flights even allowed to go. And I was on a Boeing 747 or whatever it was with 6 other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so just like, this is the most bizarre thing I've ever experienced. And I'm, first off, I'm walking through the Seattle airport. Everything is shut down.
Right.
Like everything was shut down. There was very sparse people. I was like, that's when I was like, well, when are the zombies like walking out of here? Because this was really eerie and really creepy. I'm in Seattle airport, SeaTac, and there's nobody in here. Me and a handful of other people. And then to get on the airplane, I'm sitting on here, and I had a little bit of a cold. I wasn't sick, but because I knew I had cough drops with me. I'm on the airplane with it was a couple of military guys were sitting across from me, and this one guy just kept hacking and hacking and hacking, and I could tell everybody was just like cringing around him. So I kind of snuck over and like handed him a handful of cough drops. I was like,
right.
here you go. And then I went back.
We've all seen Contagion. We all know how it goes, right?
Oh my gosh. And then the flight attendant was a guy. He was the only single guy working, the flight.
Right.
And I don't know if I just had this deer in the headlights look, like, what is happening right now? Our world is shutting down. And I'm on this flight with 6 people in this giant jet. So he's like, would you like a drink? I'm like, yeah, please. He literally handed me 4 little shooters of vodka. Just like, here, girl.
The world needs more of those guys. Yeah.
I'm telling you, I was just like, thank you. So yeah, and then getting home, and I felt pretty devastated there, thinking I'm starting this dream job, and it all just got ripped right out from under me.
Oh, that's crazy. I flew that week too. That like literally like I think the day after I got back is when everything went under lockdown. But we came home from California from a business trip on a nearly empty flight, joking and drinking a few drinks about how we were, probably going to bring all this contagion back to Colorado, kind of half joking about it and kind of like, are we bringing like all of this back to Colorado? And yeah, I mean, I remember the airport was sparse and the plane was sparse, and that
Creepy.
whole atmosphere was just very creepy, very creepy. So you get back to Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
You're sitting at home thinking about what was almost a really great adventure.
Just
Continue the drinking. Continue the drinking. Yeah.
That's when Zoom happy hours started with all of my friends.
And continued for years to come. It's weird. So you're back home. Did you do anything during the lockdown? Like, were you working at all? Were you?
Well, I had quit my job that was here local. So for maybe 6 weeks, I did the unemployment thing, the government unemployment part. And I think it was running out, and I didn't want to actually put it on anybody that I had worked for, because I'm like, this isn't their fault. So I did find an eye clinic that I knew the people. I had never worked there, but I knew like the doctors that owned it. One of the optometrists was somebody I was friends with when she was going to optometry school, and we used to play golf together and stuff. And so they were in need of a technician to come in and work. So I went in and just kind of worked for them for a few months until the Alaska thing opened back up.
So when did you officially get the word that you were going back?
I want to say July. So July of 20.
Okay.
So March
So not too
through
long.
July.
That's not too bad.
It wasn't. I was wondering if the company was going to make it. So I was
Right.
very sad if
We
they
were all
wasn't.
wondering if every company was going to make
Yeah,
it.
it was definitely scary. And I felt bad because I mean I kind of pre-warned them like, hey, I'm going to come work here for you guys, but if Prism Optical calls me back in, I'm definitely doing that. Like, you know, and it wasn't too bad. I didn't feel too guilty because they needed me as much as I needed them during that, short little period, just from
Right.
like April through July or August or whatever it was. I think it was August when I actually got back to Alaska and got to start over and train and get into it.
Were you worried at all about going back out?
No, no. I was so relieved and so excited.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so you're getting ready to fly back out. I'm really the whole like story of it feels like almost like a Hallmark movie. Like like woman's fed up with her life, decides to quit her job and go into optometry and travel
Going
the
to Alaska.
Alaskan backwoods in order to help the people find their vision while she meets. Have you met a startling bow out there? I mean, like that's the next step as far as
Oh no, no. I'll tell you what, there's an ongoing saying, I'm sure people have heard it. Anybody that has anything to do with Alaska is, there's lots of men in Alaska. The odds of meeting a man are probably pretty good, but the goods are pretty odd.
oh, that's awful. Poor guys. I'm sure they're cuddly.
No, I'm sure. I'm sure. No, when I'm out there, I'm laser focused. I'm laser focused on work. And we're literally, I take 0 days off because if
Mhm.
we're not set up doing exams, I'm packing, I'm flying to the next location, setting up, doing exams, so on.
Right.
We're doing it boom, 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 boom. At that point, I was doing trips anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks at a time.
Okay.
And then this year we switched it to 3 week trips, which is kind of nice. But the
Nice.
last couple years I've worked a lot, a lot, a lot.
How many? So you're going 3 weeks at a time. How many different towns do you hit where you do that?
Oh boy. Um, Probably 12, 13, 12 or
Okay.
13.
So like a
Yeah.
town a day. That's fun and kind of a crazy schedule. Do you
Yeah.
have
It's like I said, I'm going the whole time. So the only time I get any leisure is if I stay, an extra week or an extra few days or something like that.
Mhm.
My boss doesn't care when I fly home as long as it's not an exuberant charge, for the extra
Right.
ticket. They'll let me fly whenever I want. And then actually we have a couple of apartments. So if we don't have any doctor and tech groups coming through, they let me stay and hang at the apartment. Or if I have two trips back to back and I'm gonna be there for 5 days, they'll let me stay and just hang out.
That's kind of nice. That's a nice little bonus pack.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I get to
tell
keep all my miles.
Oh, that's fun too. Yeah. I like accruing miles. So while you're on these trips, tell me what it's like to go into these towns. Because I have this vision of a small town, like a small Alaskan town is much different than say a small mountain town in Colorado. Like
Oh,
they're kind of remote, they're kind of far. There's a lot of wildlife. Tell me about that.
so okay, so let me explain the different trips that I do, that the company does. So
Mhm.
we do what's called a town trip, which is all of that lower stuff. Like it's gonna be just, to be blunt, it's probably more white people. It's
Mhm.
gonna be fishermen, it's gonna be oil workers, that type of thing. So you're gonna be in the towns, which are larger populations, which like Ketchikan has about 9,000 people. And then it goes down from there. Anchorage, of course, being the largest one. So we do Petersburg, Wrangell. Those probably have maybe 2,000 people each. So these are the bigger locations that actually have like motels and restaurants and things like that. Big grocery stores. So when you do the towns, we're flying just on the Alaska Airlines, the big ones, and we're going town to town. There's also the interior towns, which is going to be Anchorage, and then hitting all of the towns going up to Fairbanks, and then back around, past Denali National Park and all of that. So the bigger towns can have 2,000 people. The smaller towns probably have, 700, 800 people. And then we have the bush. Now we get into where the native stuff is. And this is what you're referring to mostly, is getting back into the bush, into the villages, which are the actual indigenous native people.
Right.
And probably any of those villages, and those are completely different than the towns. Towns are all very modern, very, having, like I said, grocery stores, and you can drive and this and that. And well, you can't always drive there. Most of Alaska, you have to fly or boat.
Mm-hmm.
But except for the one little interior loop. But the bush stuff, once you get up there, you're flying little bush planes to be able to get to these places, or you're snow machining, to the different villages on the, the frozen river during the winter time, and you get a boat ride during the summer, or mostly the little bush planes is what I'm in the most.
Sounds terribly fun work.
It's awful. So when I'm in those villages, it is very, very tiny, very way out there, remote, like nothing around anywhere. And there's hundreds of these little villages. And they have, think of these buildings that are almost like modular type of buildings. And then the state funding is going to be the one big school will be there. So they always have really nice big school, but it's always a, K through 12 type of a place, because there can be anywhere from 100 people up to 900, so it just really depends. And they only have like one little store, and they don't even have fresh produce, especially during the winter. They can't get any of that. Everything has to be flown in, for them to be able to get groceries and things like that. So, they're really only getting, $15 jar of spaghetti sauce and some noodles, very rarely. They mostly live off of the land. They're going to mostly go out and go hunting, and they're going to hunt anything from walrus and seal to, harvesting a whale. That's a whole village activity.
Whoa, roll back. Have you eaten walrus?
I have not had walrus. I have not. I've had moose. I had a little bit of whale blubber, and I don't remember. There's a different name for it. It's not even that bad, actually. But I don't know.
Does it taste like steak fat? Like, what does it taste like?
No, it's fishy, kind of.
Okay.
But they make like burritos out of it, and they like make things out of it. But and then of course they have like reindeer sausage everywhere you go up there. It's actually really good, and it's just caribou. But
that's fun though. I mean, those are the kind of things that I think are really interesting, just because it's such a departure from like city living.
Absolutely.
But it's interesting to me that there are still places, and I know there's millions of them, and I'm just, sheltered in my big city, but that there's still places where people are still living off the land. People are still surviving on what's right in front of them and without everything around them.
Yeah. Hunting and fishing is the main thing. And then one thing that's really cool is, during the summer, towards the end of summer, is berry picking. There's lots and lots and lots of wild berries, and they jar them and make, whatever out of them, jams, or they make meals out of them. And, there's, different things that they do with it, make sauces that, you can put with fish. Yeah, it's very cool. And they're very proud of their culture, and they're trying to keep that culture, because they have the village council. In each village they have a city, which is working with the state and whatever funding that way. And they, do a police. You have, like one police officer in a village, and it's everybody's younger cousin. That's the guy that's the police, And then
That's
they
the
have the
guy that
village.
you end up marrying in all the Hallmark videos. So I'm just kidding. I'm entertained by this. It's
Yeah,
terrible.
I'm like, they're usually only like 22 or 23. I'm like, they're half my son's age almost. I'm like, no.
Yeah, cut it off. Awesome. So, have you gotten a chance to meet any of the families? Have you spent any time with them to learn more about, like, I think it would be really cool to spend a little time with like one of these remote families and learn some of their cooking practices. And I like to get into the food and get into
Yes.
like their I like I like learning about their faith too, because anywhere, because it just kind of teaches you a lot about different cultures, a lot
Yeah.
about the people.
They're all very Christian. Their Christianity is probably the main
Hmm.
religion that's there. Um, when I go out to these villages, like, so in the towns, we always have like either an apartment that we have and an office set up, that we travel and rotate through. But the villages, they don't have hotels or motels or nothing like that. So I take my sleeping bag and my sleeping pad and my little cook pot and my coffee with me, and I'm actually sleeping in the school, in the library on the floor, or in the tribal council office. They let us stay there, and we're, kind of, there's definitely some rough situations. But
Hmm.
it's worth it. But there's a lot of very, very kind people. Their hearts are huge. And travel is difficult, especially during the winter times, and we can't get out of there, and then we're stuck for a couple of days, and the food I brought isn't lasting. Or there was a funeral in the village, so everything shuts down, including the store. And they'll come bring you food. They come and make sure that we're taken care of and okay. They don't have a lot, but what they have, they're just so gracious and so warm and kind. I've never had a bad situation myself out there. I mean, I know there's been a couple that have happened, but it's usually somebody that's on drugs, or they're, drinking, which all of the villages are dry. They're not supposed to be drinking. You would get in huge trouble if you were to take alcohol out there. But they
Is that
ferment
state
their own.
mandated? Is that state mandated, or how does that work?
It's tribe. It's
Tribe.
by
So
tribe.
the tribe does it. Okay.
But I think, all of the tribes get together on the same page. And so, yeah, it's most majority of all of the actual villages are dry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But somebody's always bringing booze in there, because there's always somebody that's drunk walking a
Always
stack.
a bootlegger. Yep.
There's always the bootlegger, that's for sure. And one of my coworkers, I will leave nameless, met with somebody, and they had uh, fermented and made their own. I don't know if it was beer or booze or what it was, but they said they tasted it and it was god awful.
Oh, that sounds like moonshine.
I'm like, I'm not gonna ever go try to poison myself by drinking somebody's homemade
I know,
stuff.
gross.
Laugh.
I mean,
Yeah,
I like vision. I don't want to be blind.
exactly. Don't you be blinded by the moonshine.
Is there anything that has surprised you about this journey? About what you're learning about the people, about yourself?
um, again, just the culture itself, and the history. I've really learned a lot about just the history of Alaska and Alaskans, and again, they're very proud of their culture, and like I said, they're very warm. They're
Hmm.
very warm people. Very, there's places you can go and they're like, oh, they don't like white people and da 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 da. I've not run across that even once. They're very like grateful that we come in there and offer services, because there's no optometrist obviously in a little village of 200 people, and majority of them, depending on where they're at, are very lower income, poverty level, and so they live off of what they can. And again, those are the most warm people that'll give you the shirt off of their back.
Hmm.
Yeah. um No, I mean it's been very adventurous and just learning the navigating and traveling and getting from village to village and these little bush planes landing and it's interesting. It's yeah, the whole thing is just a big surprise and I love every bit of it. It's exciting. It's my son has asked me before I leave, on trips, like, are you still excited to go or is it becoming, just normal? And I was like, no, I'm always excited. And if I ever get to a place that it's not exciting and I'm not excited about it, then I won't do it anymore
Well,
because then
that that is the way it should be for sure. So do you think I personally think like whenever you do something like this, whenever you go out of your comfort zone and out of your norm, you break your brain a little bit, right? So there's a little bit of a shift internally. How do you feel like you've changed, or do you feel like you haven't changed at all? Um, as far as your perspective on the world. I mean, it's now a bigger map in your head. It's now a bigger picture in your head. Do you feel like that's given you any kind of different direction, any kind of different internal guidance?
um I feel like it has just come very naturally to me.
Mhm.
I was concerned of being out of my comfort zone and sleeping on, office floors or clinic floor, wherever I can crash and this and that. And it's surprisingly, it adds to the experience. Um, it adds to the experience. And yeah, as for the feeling of there's a great big world, it definitely makes me feel like, hey, I can go and do this stuff anywhere. I can live anywhere, first off, because I fly up there. All of the technicians and doctors live down here in the lower 48. Like there's a number of us actually from Colorado. I think Coloradans are just kind of a natural fit to go up there and fit in and be able to go to the mountains and be in the snow and ice and, you
Mhm.
know, all of that. Um, it really, I think the biggest surprise is it did come so naturally to me. And I haven't really felt too much out of my comfort zone or scared or put off by anything. I mean, like I said, it's hard work. We're never relaxing. It's not a relaxing job by any means, but just getting to do it and going and seeing the different people. And I love when we get to set up in the schools. Those are the best because all of the little kids coming through and they are just goofballs and they're so happy. They're so happy. Everybody is just happy. These people have like not much, but life is so simple and the joy and happiness, they always have smiles on their faces. And I mean the adults as much, but the kids are just especially goofy and bouncy and happy. And yeah, that's
I
pretty
think
cool.
that's amazing. I think it's really cool. Do you think you'll continue to do Alaska, or do you think you'll try and so does your company just do Alaska, or do they do other places? I think that's the
Alaska
first question.
only. Yeah, no,
Okay.
it's Prism Optical of Alaska, and we've been doing it for they've been doing it since 1959
Oh
when
wow.
Alaska actually became a state.
That's awesome. That's a good longevity.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll continue to do this for a long time, or do you think you'll start looking at other options?
As long as I'm physically and mentally able to do this job, I will absolutely continue to do it as long as I possibly can.
In Alaska, or do you think you'll go to other places?
Well, I only know of Alaska at this point. I don't know if I've never looked in to see if there's any other companies like this, because I just
Right?
know in Alaska, that's what you have audiologists and dentists and chiropractors and other doctors that's what they do. They go out to these villages because they don't have those services,
Uh-huh.
uh, there. So they have to have people travel in. And that's why there's even the teachers, they come in and get recruited to go work in these schools for 2-year contracts, and at the health clinics, nurses and doctors come in for, 2 weeks at a time or 10 days at a time, type of thing, rotations. So I'm open to anything, whatever the universe wants to bring to me and I'm supposed to do next, I'm gonna do it.
Nice.
I'm gonna do it.
Nice. Do you have I was thinking about your pictures. Do you have a favorite place? Like, is there one place that stands out above the others?
Oh, I like them all. They're all so totally different. Obviously, I wouldn't live in a village, up there out in the remote bush stuff. If I were to move to Alaska, it would be down in, the southeast island stuff.
Mhm.
Maybe like Petersburg or Sitka, something like that.
Oh, Sitka. I actually just watched The Proposal with my son the other day.
Is
I'm
that
like,
where
that
it's
sounds
based?
really familiar.
I don't
Yeah.
remember that. That's where it's based out of. That's the
Yeah.
Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds, right?
Right, right, right. Oh, that's awesome. Only if Betty White is there, I'll go visit.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess one thing that I'm curious about is now we're kind of at this place in life, right? Where we're supposed to, I think, I feel like there's a lot of value in experience, right? And
Hmm.
as we get older, it seems, at least in society today, that and I don't want to overgeneralize it because I know it's not always the case, but it seems like there's less value put on the sage kind of mentality of here's my knowledge and I pass this to you. There's this very strong, and I think the internet is a lot of it, where you know, millennials, younger, they kind of feel like they know everything. They don't seem to connect with the old stories as much as they used to because they're building their own culture. And I remember kind of being an ass at that age and not really caring about anybody's stories too.
Hmm.
But if you were able to talk to yourself and were able to go back and say, okay, this is what I've learned, this is what I can give to you, and this is the knowledge that I give to you, what would you tell your younger self?
To just let things happen. Just just to calm down. You can't control anything.
Right.
Really, there's nothing that we I used to be such a control freak, and I caused myself so much anxiety and wanting things to be a certain way, wanting to have these certain goals, wanting to do, these lay these things out and focus on money and, go, 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 go. Um, the best thing that's happened to me, I would say, within the last 3 years of working on myself and really digging in, but doing meditation and the mindfulness. And I hate that word because it's so cliche at this point and it's used everywhere, but it's just the realizing you don't have control of anything and letting things happen the way they're supposed to and not be so anxious about stuff. You know, along with the anxiousness that I used to have, I had a lot of anger underneath there, aggressiveness, temper and things like that. And to just lose it, being mad at people, being mad at things, being angry or anxious that things aren't going exactly how you planned it, to just let that all go. And it's not worth the cortisol you're pumping through your body and the fight or flight. We live in such a fight or flight constant state,
Mhm.
and I've meditation has definitely been key in that, and really digging in and looking at those deep past traumas. Everybody has them. Every single person has them. Some are worse than others, but just going in and really recognizing and dealing with those things, and don't try to just stuff it down, like go in and actually look at it, face it, recognize it, name it, call it what it is, and forgive it and move on,
Mhm.
you know.
I think that's sound advice, definitely. So it's good. I mean, I'm going to take some of that with me. But so where do you see yourself in 10 years?
I'm going down the road. I am studying to be a holistic health coach, which is not as much about, I mean, of course, it has its food aspect of it, side of it, but being kind of a life coach, a health coach, looking at finding balance in your life and striving to move forward and be on a journey. There's no destination. We're just there's no end point to be happy. You got to be happy now while you're going on it. And I think meditation, yoga, that type of holistic healing, internal, spiritual, finding a balance in all of that. So that's the route I'm going to start to build on. I think eventually doing like retreats and
Nice.
things like that.
That sounds like fun for sure. Hold that thought, please, one moment.
No problem.
I mean, he is legitimately bleeding this time.
Yeah, this time.
It cracks me up. He got in a fight with some of my wall art fell on him the other day, and so he's got a big old thing on
Oh
him.
no.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for everything, and I again look forward to seeing all of your pictures more on Facebook and anywhere. I kind of am hoping that you'll take all your pictures and write a book and share some of the things that you've seen out there and learned out there and kind of
I thought,
where like the direction that it takes you. I think sharing that with everyone is there's value, it's beautiful. So thank you for sharing with me tonight, but thank you for definitely putting it on Facebook and sharing it with the world. Is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have?
no, I don't think so. I
Anything
don't
else you
think
want to
so.
say?
I've
Awesome.
enjoyed this. This has been great.
This
And
has been fun.
I do leave on the 31st for a 3-week trip, so I'll be
I'll be
posting some
watching.
pictures. I'll be going by Denali. Hopefully I'll get some good pictures of Denali.
Oh, that'll be so cool. Yeah, definitely take pictures of that. I want to see all of it. Awesome. Well, thank you, Theresa. I love you, and I wish you safe travels and fun adventures and all the good things. But this has been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, friend. I appreciate you. Love you too.